There has to be, if we're going to get where we, I think, want to go in this country, a legal debate and an argument that we vote on these. You just can't start handing out candy.
Hi, I'm Lauren LeBruno with Erupt News, reporting in Los Angeles. I just returned from Washington, D.C., where I spoke with Republican Congressman Pete Sessions. Sessions is a Capitol Hill veteran and currently serves for the 17th District of Texas. He said a lot of interesting things about immigration, namely that the Obama administration intentionally brought Africans to Texas to diversify the state. He also spoke about the current border situation and what his vision is for the future of immigration to the United States. Check it out. Honored to have you. Thanks for taking the time.
What a beautiful day it is to be together. And of course, knowing you're from California, exciting things are happening in California, but change is underway as it is in our country. And it's a great time to talk about it.
Let's start with you. So you were born and raised in Texas, pretty much spent your entire life there. What encouraged you to run for office and represent the people of Texas?
Well, I kind of cheated. My dad became political. My dad was a federal judge for 14 years and became the FBI director for a guy named President Reagan, Californian, President Bush, and then President Clinton. And during that period of time, a number of people influenced my life. I was at Bell Labs in New Jersey. I spent 16 years with AT&T. And during the period of time that I was up in New Jersey, my dad was the director of the Bureau, and this guy, Jack Kemp, who's an exciting young Republican who spoke about economics and moving our country forward economically for not just a generation, but to build America to where we were, as President Reagan would say, the shining city on the hill. At the same time, I had 2 children. One was a Down syndrome child, Alex, who's now 26 years old. And so addressing these needs that were in front of Americans through a new majority, a majority that instead of being for what the Democratic Party was then, which was social activism, to one of working together. It was very, very instructive to me and something that I felt like was worth quitting my career to be a part of.
Something I think at the center of conversation around Texas specifically is immigration. We've had record numbers the past few months. I believe in July, 200,000 plus encounters, and just recently, a few weeks ago, there was up to 14,000 migrants underneath a bridge in Del Rio, Texas. So in terms of your vision for immigration, what is a way to create a safe and stable immigration process?
The bottom line is that Texas, for a long period of time, has been Democrats weaponized immigration and bringing people in to dilute Texas strength. This has been done. President Obama, of all the people that came, we'll say legally through immigration, to the United States, over 1 million people a year, now for over 25 years. That's 25 million people. A good number of them came from Africa, the largest bulk of who President Obama allowed to come in, came to Texas. Intentionally, they came to Texas. They intentionally brought them to Texas politically to perhaps make us more diverse. This is now happening with immigration from southbound. What's interesting is that they did not follow not just rule of law, but children were not even tracked and known, small children, and it is a desperate plight that is being put on our local cities, schools, healthcare, county organizations, perhaps even, as has been noted, the COVID experience. So what's the answer to this? The answer to this is what I believe would be bipartisan, yes, perhaps, but it is a bill that would allow a guest worker plan to be the legal status that a person could peg themselves. We believe that there were before what I would call January 20th of this year, we believe that there is a substantive argument to say that people who were in this country should be allowed to gain a legal status to where we would know who they were, they could get a driver's license, they could get a bank account, but they would have to come forth, just like a legal process of citizenship or green card or other attributes, perhaps ag worker status, where they would come forth and register themselves. Tell us who they are. They would be given legal status, kind of like a DACA program. And we would know who they were, and they would have limits in the law. It's not about citizenship. The argument is, do you have to be here 10 years? Do you have to pay a fine? I think we could work these things out. That is where we need to go. We need to go to a guest worker status, something, I didn't say DACA, but something DACA-like, where people know that they have a legal status in this country, where we know who they are, and to where we can move forward within a context of them knowing the law. Now, we can come together off a guest worker plan. I do not believe the votes exist for, even though the Democrats are attempting to do this, and you may have seen a week ago the Senate parliamentarian said you cannot bypass the immigration law by putting it into a revenue matter.
The $3.5 trillion
That's
spending
right.
bill. So I was going to ask you about that as well. So do you think it's a good thing that there was no immigration provisions included in that?
There has to be, if we're going to get where we, I think, want to go in this country, a legal debate and an argument that we vote on these. You just can't start handing out candy.
Right. And you cite economy as one of your key issues as a representative. When we're talking about these bills, even the nearly $1 trillion infrastructure bill and now the $3.5 trillion spending bill plan, what impact, if any, do you think they would have on the economy if they are passed?
Well, as a congressman, I do believe that it is important. And a former chairman of the House Rules Committee, I view that they are three separate processes that they are trying to confuse into one package. And a lot of it is because they've got so many new members that don't really understand systematically what they're attempting to do except to spend as much money as possible. There are three convergent ideas. One is the debt limit, raising the debt limit. The Democrats tried in this process to simply say, we're going to put a date out there of till the next election. That is not what this is about. They could go spend $10 trillion. It is a debt limit. What is that financial standard that we're going to allow the Fed to be able to print money to go and auction off our future off of economics? And they did not like that, and they're struggling to get that done. The second is the reconciliation, the $3.5 trillion reconciliation. Reconciliation advantage is that it can be passed with 50 votes in the Senate and avoids going through cloture. So that's an advantage to a majority to make it easier to pass their agenda. That is being confronted by several members, two standout Democrat senators, but there are more, and there are more House members who are in the Democratic Party who are big caution flags. That's because of inflation, that's because of unemployment, that's because of harming existing jobs and our standing really in the world. The larger question is, not are we going to pay this back, but the larger question to them is do we realize we got to pay interest off this that will compete against the next budget and the next budget? And then we've got the infrastructure bill, which is $1.2 trillion, $1.2 billion. And the problems Republicans have with, as I said, the debt limit, as I said, the $3.5 trillion spending, as I will say, with the infrastructure bill, only about 6% of it is actually for infrastructure. Roads, bridges, ports, taking care of airports, taking care of our infrastructure, and the vast part of it will be decided, or could be decided, entirely by the Department of Transportation. In that bill, it's very interesting to Republicans, that there are provisions in there, and they have a Buy America clause, and then the next section down, but it can be completely waived. We saw that as a standing on one side saying we're Buy American, but on the other side, but we're going to go have an ability to literally buy $400 billion worth of supply from China. So that's why Republicans are against this next bill. Only 6 to 7% is for infrastructure, and secondly, a Buy American clause that is gutted.
And I have only a few questions left for you, but in terms of innovation, SpaceX announced that they're going to be building a rocket engine factory in McLennan County, Texas, which is your district. So what do you think that says in terms of innovation and business growth in the state of Texas?
Well, in fact, SpaceX has established themselves in McLennan County. That's outside of Waco. It's actually McGregor, and for a number of years, you can hear the ground shake, which probably they wouldn't allow in California. But the ground shakes in Waco, Texas, 15 miles away. We call that the sound of technology, of progress. They are going to establish this. I think the people that have moved there like Texas. So we're for it. And we think that our avenue of having a coast is good for them to launch satellites, to launch what they're doing. We think Elon Musk has made some wise choices and good decisions.
And last question for you, Congressman. A lot of pundits say that Texas is purple, and with the population influx, it could turn blue by 2028. So what are your thoughts on that? And to finish it off, what is the future that you see for Texas?
Well, these are valid points. We've heard for a long period of time that the Hispanic influence, the growth of Hispanic families, would do the same thing. And in some respects, I think it's more a matter of how many people live in large cities and how many people live outside of large cities, perhaps suburbs. We just had a curve change in this last election. In fact, Hispanics come about their politics is also through not liking communism and socialism. Socialism and communism is the basis of the AOC and the revolution against the Democratic Party. And their answer is government, and government making decisions in our lives, and government getting bigger. I think people see where you got to pay for this, and that's a cost of jobs, that's a cost of technology, and ultimately a cost of their future. And I think that when you look at the value set that many Hispanics bring, they're coming from an understanding, if not their direct family descendants, that communism, Cuba, dictatorships means everybody loses. Look at Venezuela. These are socialist governments. And socialism is bad for freedom, and it's bad for families. And it ultimately is corruption, and by far it is very dangerous because they allow criminal behavior to flourish. And that's the Democratic Party, so let's pin the tail on the donkey.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Congressman. I really
Yes, ma'am.
appreciate you taking the time.